She was left alone on a Christmas blind date until a little girl sat down and changed everything. Snow drifted lazily through the streets of Denver, swirling in the glow of Christmas lights that flickered on store windows and street lamps. The air was crisp, brittle, filled with the soft hush of falling snow. Inside the upscale restaurant, Aspen Ridge, warm light spilled across polished wood floors and candlelit tables. The faint melody of a holiday piano floated through the air. Claire Dawson slipped into the restaurant, her breath shallow, cheeks rosy from the cold. She wore a soft green dress that clung gently to her frame, simple, unpretentious, not flashy. Her long, golden hair fell in loose curls along her shoulders. She had taken care choosing this outfit. It wasn't expensive, but she hoped it would be enough. Claire had worked long hours at the local supermarket as a cashier. She saved each paycheck carefully, rarely buying anything new for herself. When her closest friend suggested a blind date for Christmas Eve, Claire hesitated, but agreed. Maybe this was her small chance to step out of her comfort zone. Maybe a moment of hope. She scanned the restaurant, looking for her date. The place was elegant, polished silverware, crisp linen napkins, and hushed conversations dripping with wealth and privilege. She tucked her hands under the table, trying to look calm as the door opened. Bryce Carter strode in, tall, elegantly dressed, confidence radiating with each step. His eyes locked on Claire, appraising with a cool detachment from head to toe. Claire's heart fluttered, then sank a little. His gaze felt heavy. When he sat down and asked what she did for a living, she hesitated, then said quietly, "I work as a cashier." A cold, short laugh escaped him. "A cashier? I thought maybe you worked in something creative, not a common job like that." He emphasized the last words, as if they carried all the weight. Claire's cheeks burned. She forced a polite smile and nodded, refusing to let tears show. She fumbled with the menu as the waiter appeared. Bryce barely glanced at the options, then waved him away. "You know what?" he said suddenly, voice flat. "I'm sorry, but I don't think this is going to work." Claire's fingers tightened on the menu. The table seemed to shrink. She barely heard him finish. "I have nothing against poor people. It's just we're not in the same class." With that, he stood up, gently placed his napkin back on the table, and walked off, leaving Claire alone. The chair scraped the floor. Heads turned. Whispers rose softly. She swallowed, muscles tense. For a second, everything stilled. Then, the glass door whispered closed behind him. The sound reverberated through the golden-lit room, cruel and sharp. Claire fumbled, eyes fixed on the flickering candle. The warmth of the restaurant felt hollow now. She realized in that moment she had been abandoned. On Christmas Eve, in a place meant for joy. People at nearby tables looked up, some with startled eyes, others with pity. A few averted their gaze, shifting uncomfortably. Claire felt their pity like a weight, unwanted, sharp, humiliating. She wished she could disappear. Tears threatened the corner of her eyes, but she swallowed. She didn't want to make a scene. She didn't want anyone's pity. She just sat there, shoulders trembling, dressed stiff against the cold air of the restaurant. Her name was Claire Dawson. She had come hoping for warmth, maybe even companionship. What she found instead was cold rejection. Alone on Christmas, exactly like the headline promised, and outside, the snow continued to fall, gentle, unrelenting, as though the world didn't care who was left behind. Claire kept her eyes down, pretending to study the menu, though the words blurred beneath her tears. Her fingers trembled as she reached for her water glass, but it slipped slightly, knocking against the table. A sharp splash echoed louder than she expected. A few drops soaked into the napkin. She clenched her jaw and blinked fast. She would not cry here, not in front of all these strangers. Just as she tried to steady her hands again, a small voice broke through the noise around her. "Miss, are you sad?" Claire looked up, startled. Standing beside her table was a little girl, no older than 5. Her brown hair curled in soft waves around her face, and she wore a red sparkly dress with matching tights and tiny black shoes. Her eyes, wide, sincere, impossibly kind, stared straight at Claire, unafraid. For a moment, Claire could not speak. The little girl took another step forward, her voice quieter this time. You're sitting all alone, but it's Christmas. Before Claire could respond, a man appeared behind the child, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. Eva, sweetheart, he began, but the girl cut him off with determined innocence. Daddy, she looks like she needs someone. Claire met his gaze. He was tall, with striking but soft features, dark hair neatly styled, dressed in a coat that said wealth without arrogance. His eyes were warm, but cautious, the kind of man who weighed each moment before acting. She didn't know it, but she was looking at Nathan Cole, one of the youngest tech CEOs in the country, founder of Coltech. But in that moment, he was simply a father trying to gently coax his child away. I'm so sorry, he said, a little embarrassed. She has a kind heart and no filter. Claire smiled for the first time that night, despite herself. It's okay, really. But Eva was already climbing onto the seat beside her. You should not be alone. Christmas is for being with people. Nathan reached for her again. Eva, come on. We should give her some space. Claire let out a small laugh, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. It's all right. She's actually the best part of my night. Nathan hesitated. Claire looked at him, her smile trembling but real. Would it be weird if I said I'd like some company? He smiled softly. Not weird at all. He sat on the other side of Eva, who clapped her hands in victory. Now it's a real Christmas table, she declared proudly. Claire looked between the two of them, warmth slowly replacing the ache in her chest. I'm Claire, by the way. I'm Nathan, and this whirlwind is Eva. Nice to meet you both. Claire's voice was quiet, but there was something steady in it now. Nathan caught the hint of it, the weight of loneliness she carried, and the grace with which she masked it. The waitress returned, puzzled, seeing three where there had once been one. But she said nothing, just handed out new menus with a smile. Eva immediately started talking about everything. School, how she tried to make gingerbread but burnt the arms off, and how her dad said she was the best gift he ever got. Her voice filled the silence Claire had been drowning in. Claire rested her hands on the table, glancing at Eva, then at Nathan. I was really dreading tonight, she said softly. Nathan met her eyes. And now? Claire breathed in, felt the tension ease just slightly. Now I'm really glad I came. And just like that, on a night that began with rejection and solitude, three strangers shared a table that felt more like a beginning than an accident. The transformation was subtle at first. The lonely silence that had clouded Claire's table was replaced by the cheerful, animated chatter of a 5-year-old. Eva swung her feet beneath the chair and spoke as if she had known Claire for years. At school, we made paper snowflakes, but mine ripped, Eva said with a dramatic sigh. But Miss Lindsay said it was still the prettiest. Nathan listened with quiet amusement, nodding along. Claire found herself smiling, really smiling, for the first time that night. And guess what? Eva grinned. Daddy burned the Christmas cookies. They smelled like toast. Claire laughed, covering her mouth. Is that true? Nathan gave a sheepish shrug. In my defense, she distracted me by singing a carol about reindeer with 20 verses. As Eva giggled, Nathan subtly reached over and adjusted Claire's chair, pulling it in closer to the table without a word, just enough so she would be comfortable. A moment later, when he noticed her blinking rapidly, he placed a neatly folded napkin in front of her, not making a fuss, not calling attention. Claire gave him a quick, thankful glance. When a waiter came by, eyeing Claire with thinly veiled pity, Nathan's quiet presence shifted. He looked the server straight in the eye and smiled at Claire with such genuine warmth and respect that the waiter's expression faltered. Whatever assumptions he had made, they didn't survive the moment. The food arrived, and the table filled with warmth, roasted chicken, creamy potatoes, and soft rolls. Eva took a bite, then carefully picked up a piece of chicken with her tiny fork and placed it on Claire's plate. You can have mine, she said proudly, because you're nice. And nice people should eat chicken. Claire froze for a moment, then gave her the kind of smile that trembled just a little too much. Nathan watched the exchange quietly. When Claire looked up at him, he held her gaze, and something softened in him. Not pity, but recognition. As the meal went on, Claire found herself speaking. She told them, haltingly, about Bryce. He walked in, took one look at me, and left. Said we weren't in the same class. Nathan's jaw clenched, his fork pausing mid-air. Sounds like someone with no class at all, he said bluntly. Claire let out a small laugh, though her voice caught. It's funny, I almost didn't come tonight. But my best friend said maybe, something unexpected could happen. Eva, who had been munching quietly, suddenly asked, Miss Claire, do you want a family? Claire blinked. I what? Eva tilted her head. Because you look like someone who needs a hug. Claire's lips parted, but no words came. Her eyes welled up as her hand went to her mouth. A tear slipped down her cheek, fast, followed by another. Nathan turned his face slightly, giving her privacy, but his eyes lingered on the way Claire cradled the napkin, trying not to sob in front of a child. Claire laughed through her tears, then shook her head. You're very wise for someone who's 5. Eva beamed. I know. Daddy tells me that too. Claire nodded, her voice still shaky. Well, he's right. Nathan met her gaze again, this time with a softness that was no longer cautious. Something had shifted, not because of romance, not yet, but because something real had been born at that table. Connection. No more glances of pity, no more one-sided conversations. For the first time, in a long time, Claire felt seen. And, across the table, a little girl grinned, as if this was the dinner she had been hoping for all along. 1 week had passed since the Christmas Eve dinner that still lingered in Claire's memory like a warm light. She had returned to her usual shifts at Evergreen Market, standing behind the register with a smile she had practiced for years. Yet no matter how many customers passed or how many receipts printed, a quiet ache rested in her chest. A soft, persistent echo of laughter from a little girl in red and the calm, steady voice of a man who had made her feel seen. She kept telling herself it was just a moment, a sweet, fleeting night that would never return. Men like him did not return, and girls like her, with sensible shoes and worn-out gloves, did not get second chances. That afternoon, snow began to fall again. The store was unusually quiet, the glass doors fogged with condensation. Claire was stacking plush toys in aisle 5, her hands moving mechanically, her eyes slightly unfocused from fatigue after covering extra shifts. Then, a soft sound stopped her. A quiet, hiccuping sob from the far end of the aisle. She looked up and saw a small figure sitting on the cold floor. A girl in a red, glittering dress, with chestnut curls and trembling shoulders. Claire's heart jumped. It was her, the same little girl. Claire moved quickly, but gently toward her, kneeling beside her. What's wrong, sweetheart? She asked softly. The girl lifted her tear-filled eyes. I dropped my bunny. He's cold. I can't find him, she said, her voice shaking. Her arms wrapped around her knees, and her whole body seemed so small, so afraid. Claire didn't hesitate. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a tissue, dabbing at the girl's cheeks with gentle hands. Let me help you, she whispered. I'm very good at finding lost treasures. The girl stared at her, eyes round with wonder. Then she gasped. You're the green fairy. Claire blinked, then smiled. Of course, she was still in her green supermarket uniform. The girl's imagination filled in the rest. Claire laughed, for the first time in days. Determined, she began her search. She crawled on the floor, looking under shelves, moving toy boxes, and reaching into corners. Her knees pressed into the cold tile, but she didn't stop. After a moment, she spotted a fuzzy ear poking out from beneath a crate. She pulled it free and dusted it off gently, brushing a bit of melted snow from the fabric. Turning back, she knelt before the girl and presented the bunny with a dramatic flair. Your noble friend has been rescued, princess. The girl gasped in delight and threw her arms around the stuffed animal. You found him. You really are magic. Claire felt the warmth of the child's embrace as she leaned in for a quick hug, one so instinctive it caught her by surprise. Then a voice called out softly from behind them. "Claire?" She turned and saw him. Nathan stood just around the corner, a shopping cart half full by his side. His eyes were wide, first with concern, then relief, and finally, something else, something gentler. He walked forward slowly. Instead of scolding, he knelt down beside his daughter, pulled her into his arms, and smoothed her hair. "I was looking for you, sweetheart. You scared me." Then he looked at Claire. "Thank you," he said, with deep sincerity. Again, Claire blushed, unsure what to say. Her heart pounded a little faster. Before she could speak, the girl tugged her father's sleeve. "Daddy, it's her, the green fairy. She found Mr. Bunny again." Nathan chuckled, his eyes softening. "The green fairy, huh?" Then he looked back at Claire. "I was going to say something simple like, thank you, but would it be too much to invite you for a cup of hot cocoa?" His voice was warm, without pressure. There was no CEO formality, no airs, just a man offering something kind. Claire hesitated, but the girl leaned close, clasped her hand, and gave her the biggest eyes imaginable. "Please come, Miss Green Fairy." Claire laughed again. How could she say no? She nodded. As they walked together toward the checkout, Nathan said quietly, "Funny thing, I didn't think we'd meet again, but maybe the universe had other plans." Claire looked down, her cheeks pink. Outside, the snow was falling softly, and as the doors opened with a hiss of warm air, the three of them stepped into the winter evening, not as strangers, but as something that had yet to find its name. The Cocoa Cafe at the end of the street was small, tucked between a bookstore and a florist, with warm lights glowing through frosted windows. Nathan opened the door, holding it for Claire and Eva as they stepped into the cozy warmth. The scent of melted chocolate and spices wrapped around them like a blanket. Eva's eyes lit up, but Claire hesitated. The place was charming, too charming. The wooden tables, the hand-painted mugs, the shelves of books. It all felt like a different world. She adjusted her supermarket uniform jacket, trying to shrink into herself. Nathan noticed. Without saying much, he pulled a soft, olive-colored scarf from his coat pocket and handed it to her. "This would look great on you. And it'll keep you warm?" Claire blinked. She took the scarf slowly, almost afraid of ruining it with her touch. But when she wrapped it around her shoulders, it felt like something more than fabric. It felt like being seen. They found a table by the window. Claire sat near the edge, unsure, while Eva climbed easily onto the cushioned bench and leaned her small head against Claire's side without hesitation. "You smell like cinnamon," the girl mumbled. Claire laughed, a sound that surprised even herself. Nathan looked over, and his smile softened at the sight of the two of them. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He just watched. Then, over mugs of hot cocoa topped with whipped cream and a dusting of cinnamon, Nathan began to talk. His voice was even, calm, not dramatic, but honest. He told Claire about his late wife, Ava, about how she had been working late the night of the accident, and how he had stayed in the office a little too long, caught up in a $1 million deal. By the time he reached her hospital room, it was already too late. Claire listened without interrupting. Her hands cupped the warm mug, but her eyes never left his. "I've spent every day since trying to be enough for our daughter," Nathan said softly, "and wondering if I could have done more." He didn't ask for pity. He didn't wallow. He simply shared. Claire shifted slightly, the scarf brushing her collarbone. Then, she spoke too, haltingly at first. She talked about working hard, about always being the one people overlooked. She admitted, almost in a whisper, that sometimes she felt like her life had passed her by without anyone really seeing her. Nathan shook his head. Just because someone makes less money doesn't mean they matter less. You only need one person to see you right. Claire's lips parted, but no words came. Just a look, something between gratitude and disbelief. At that moment, Claire got a bit of whipped cream on her nose. Eva giggled, reached up with a napkin, and wiped it off. "Oops. Coco knows," she declared proudly. Claire blushed, but laughed again. And Nathan didn't just smile. He stared, as if for the first time he imagined Claire not just in this moment, but in their world. Later, when the cocoa cups were empty and the warmth of the cafe lingered on their skin, Nathan offered to drive Claire home. She declined politely. The supermarket was close, and she didn't want coworkers seeing her stepping out of a luxury car. Nathan didn't argue. Instead, he walked with them to the entrance of the store. Claire said goodnight, then turned to go. But just before she disappeared inside, she glanced back. Nathan was still there. He stood quietly in the snow, waiting, not because he had to, but because he wanted to make sure she got in safely. That was the moment Claire realized. This wasn't just a rich man. This was a kind man. The whispers started on a Thursday. Eva was restocking shelves when she noticed two co-workers glancing her way, then turning to each other with smirks. A customer, a regular who read too many business magazines, had seen her talking to Nathan the day before and recognized him immediately. "That's Nathan Cole," the woman had whispered. "The tech CEO. I saw him leave with the cashier girl. What's going on there?" It spread quickly. By lunch, the gossip had grown cruel. "Guess being sweet gets you a billionaire. Maybe I should flirt in the cocoa aisle too." Eva heard it all. Every snide comment behind her back felt like a pinprick to her pride. She kept her head down, but shame clung to her like static. She stopped replying to Nathan's texts. She ignored his lunch invitation. When he called, she stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. In her mind, she told herself it was for the best. People like him didn't belong in lives like hers. They might visit, they might mean well, but they didn't stay. Nathan, for his part, didn't push. He sent only one message. "I don't want to make you feel pressured. When you're ready, I'll be here." Then came the unexpected visitor. That Saturday, Eva was organizing receipts at the service counter when a familiar voice rang out across the store. "Miss Greenferry." Eva looked up. Claire was running toward her, arms wide, cheeks red from the cold. "Do you not like me anymore?" the little girl asked, stopping just short of her. "You didn't come back." Something in Eva cracked. Right there, under the flickering overhead lights and the cold glances of coworkers, her eyes welled with tears. She dropped to her knees and hugged Claire tightly. "I missed you," she whispered. "So much." Nathan appeared moments later, scanning the store until he found them. When he stepped forward, one of Eva's co-workers snorted. "Must be nice. Some of us actually have to work to get ahead." The words were sharp, meant to humiliate. But Nathan didn't respond with authority or anger. He simply looked at the employee and said calmly, "She's one of the kindest, most grounded people I've ever met. If more places had someone like her, the world would be a much better place." The store went quiet, utterly quiet. No one laughed. No one added anything. Eva, stunned, turned to Nathan with wide eyes. He gave her a gentle smile, then looked down at Claire. "Ready to go?" Eva finished her shift in silence. But something had changed. Not just around her, but within her. Later that night, in the staff break room, she found Nathan waiting just outside. "I'm scared," she admitted softly. "Scared I'm not enough, that I'm too small for your world." Nathan stepped closer, not with grandeur, but with gentleness. "My family doesn't need glitter. We need heart. Claire needs someone who hugs her tight, not someone with a luxury car. And me, I just need someone who means it." Eva's voice cracked. "I do. I mean it." She leaned her head onto his shoulder, finally letting herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was real. That kindness could be enough. That love could look like this. Nathan's home was just as Eva imagined it might be. Elegant, modern, yet quietly lived in. Not a showroom, but a place where life happened. Framed photos lined the hallway. Claire grinning in oversized rain boots. A smiling woman with chestnut hair. Eva, holding Claire as a baby. A picture of the three of them at a beach, with Nathan's hand protectively on Ava's back. It was Ava's home too. Nathan had called it a family day. Eva had hesitated before accepting, understanding without being told that this wasn't just an invitation. It was a turning point. Claire grabbed her hand the moment she arrived. "Come see the secret room." The secret room, it turned out, was a converted guest room painted in soft yellow, filled with toys, plush animals, and shelves of picture books. Eva knelt down, taking it all in. Claire proudly presented her a drawing, crayon lines bright and shaky, 3 figures holding hands under a Christmas tree. "That's you," Claire said, pointing at the woman with yellow hair. "That's me, and that's Daddy. We're having cookies." Eva blinked back tears. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." In the living room, Nathan handed her a small box. She looked at him, unsure. "Not jewelry," he smiled. "Just something that matters." Inside was a handmade card. On the front, a child's handwriting. "Kolam na min vui home." You make our home happier. Claire had written it, but Nathan had saved it, wrapped it, and given it to her like a gift of belonging. Eva's heart swelled. For the first time, the invisible wall of class, of not enough, didn't seem so tall, but not everyone felt the same. "Eva, this is my mother, Helen," Nathan said later, as a poised older woman stepped through the door. Her coat was pristine, her smile polite but cool. "I've heard about you," Helen said, eyes assessing. "And I can see Claire's fond of you." Her voice softened slightly, but the steel returned quickly. "But tell me, are you truly ready to be a mother to a child whose mother you've never met, who might always carry someone else in her heart?" Eva froze. The words weren't loud, but they sliced deep. She didn't answer, not because she didn't want to, but because anything she said would feel defensive, small. Nathan stepped forward. His voice was calm, but firm. "Mom, I haven't felt this kind of peace in 3 years. If you love me, please let me choose what makes me whole again. Let Eva be part of that choice." Helen's lips parted as if to argue, but then she closed them. She didn't agree. Not yet, but she didn't object again either. That night, Eva stayed for dinner. Afterward, Claire grew sleepy and crawled into Eva's lap. Eva didn't move. When the little girl drifted off, she adjusted a throw blanket and held her close, brushing back a lock of hair from Claire's forehead. Nathan stood in the doorway, watching. No grand speeches, no need for declarations. In that simple, quiet image, Eva holding his daughter like she had always belonged, Nathan knew. This wasn't just someone he cared for. This was someone he wanted to stay. The reservation was under Cole, Nathan Cole. Aspen Ridge looked exactly as Eva remembered it, grand, elegant, and gleaming with candlelight. The walls still shimmered with gold accents. The air still smelled faintly of rosemary and wine, and the sound of clinking glasses echoed gently, like distant chimes. But this time, something was different. Her hands were not empty. Claire held one, Nathan the other. As they stepped through the door, Eva's heart pounded, not from nerves alone, but from memory. This was where she had once sat, abandoned and invisible. Now, she was guided in with warmth on either side of her, a small hand swinging at her side and another holding hers just tight enough to say, "You belong." The hostess smiled and led them to a table in the corner. It was quiet, tucked away, private. On the table, there was no glittering centerpiece, no crystal vases or roses like the ones on the other tables. Just a small, simple bouquet of wildflowers. Eva's breath caught in her throat. Nathan glanced at her and smiled gently. "I remembered what you said, about liking things that don't try too hard." She smiled back, touched in a way she could not fully explain. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the menu. Stepping into this place felt like stepping into an old scar. But this time, it wasn't breaking her open. This time, she wasn't alone. Dinner unfolded softly, like a quiet song. Conversation flowed, not loud, not forced, just comfortable. Claire giggled as she filled in her kid's menu maze, swinging her legs under the table. Nathan, without being asked, poured water into Eva's glass and passed her the bread basket with a wink. Every move was quiet, attentive, never grandiose. Then, Just as the dessert tray was wheeled over, Claire slipped off her chair and darted toward the back of the restaurant. Eva blinked, surprised, but Nathan only smiled knowingly. Moments later, Claire returned, her arms holding a small pink box tied with a red ribbon. "Miss, open it," she chirped excitedly, placing the box in Eva's lap. With trembling fingers, Eva untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside were 3 sugar cookies. One shaped like a man in a suit. One, a little girl with curly hair. And one, a blonde woman in a green dress. Family, in frosting. Her eyes filled before she could speak. Nathan rose from his seat, not to kneel, not to propose, but to steady himself, to speak as a man, not a fairy tale. "I'm not proposing," he said gently. "Not yet. I just want you to know. You turned an empty house into the warmest place I've ever known." Eva's throat closed. Her lips parted, but no words came. Claire walked over, small arms wrapping around Eva's leg. She leaned in close and whispered, "Can you stay with us?" That was all it took. Tears slipped silently down Eva's cheeks. She crouched, arms sweeping the little girl into a hug, face buried in the softness of Claire's hair. Her heart was too full, too raw, too ready. At that moment, a figure stepped through the entrance. Helen. She paused for a long breath, watching. Her expression was unreadable at first, but then her shoulders softened. "I was wrong," she said, voice lower, slower. "I see it now. The same thing I once saw in Ava. Kindness, not pedigree, not perfection, just someone who loves." She turned to her son, then to Eva. "If my son chooses you, I won't stand in the way." Eva's tears came harder as Nathan stepped closer, wrapping both her and Claire in his arms. That night, the 3 walked out of Aspen Ridge into softly falling snow. No pity, no shame, only the warmth of fingers interlaced, a child's head resting on a shoulder, and a quiet joy that wrapped around them like a blanket. As they reached the car, Claire kissed Eva's cheek and whispered, "I have a mommy now." Eva smiled through tears. "And I have a daughter." They drove home under a sky full of snow, no longer strangers at a dinner table, but a family, unexpected, imperfect, and real. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey of unexpected love, healing, and second chances. She was left alone, on a Christmas blind date, until a little girl sat down and changed everything. Reminds us that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes, it's about who chooses to stay. If this story warmed your heart, brought a tear to your eye, or simply made you believe in kindness again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness and Love Tales for more soul-touching stories that celebrate love in all its beautiful forms.
Heart change stories are not just tallies. They are journeys of pain, hope, and transformation. Stories that touch the soul, change perspectives, and remind us that even the broken heart can find a new beginning.